are those who have learned to acclaim you, who walk in the light of your presence, Lord. Psalm 89 verse 15. Welcome, dear children, to today's class. Let's begin this new lesson with a prayer. Kindly join your hands and close your eyes. Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Lesson 10. In the Promised Land. In the last few lessons, we have seen the exodus of the people of Israel from Egypt. Children, do you remember the sequence of events that happened? Let's recollect some of them. The Israelites were liberated from Pharaoh by Moses. They crossed the Red Sea, they wandered in the deserts and ate manna and quails. Also, Moses received the 2 stone tablets where the 10 commandments were written. The stone tablets with the commandments were kept in the Ark of the Covenant. The Israelites followed the cloud into the wilderness. The priest carried the Ark of the Covenant in front of them. In this lesson, we will see how the Israelites entered the promised land of Canaan after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Israel, the chosen people, defied God on several occasions. Each time God punished them, but later forgave them mercifully and showered them with blessings. In spite of all this, they even doubted God's covenant of the promised land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey. God gave them suitable punishment. Children, what happened was, as commanded by Lord, Moses sent 12 leaders of the tribes to Canaan to explore the land. When they came back, 10 of them, except for Joshua and Caleb, gave a false report saying the land was full of giants who will devour them and the Israelites would look like grasshoppers in front of them. People believed this and they wanted to go back to Egypt. God was furious that the Israelites despised his promises and believed the words of the leaders. He said to them, "As punishment for your faithlessness, your children shall wander in the desert as nomads for 40 years. You must do penance for 40 years in atonement for your misdeeds." 40 years of life in the wilderness was really hard and tedious for the Israelites. Children, 40 years of punishment was given by God according to the number of days the leaders of the tribes sent by Moses spied the land of Canaan. Since the leaders spent 40 days in Canaan, Israelites had to suffer 40 years of punishment, 1 year for each day spent. Whenever they faced problems, the people of Israel murmured against Moses and against God. But Moses always begged God for forgiveness on behalf of the people. Thus, Moses was leading a people whose prominent traits were disobedience and defiance. Death of Moses. Moses was the leader of Israel since the days when they were liberated from slavery in Egypt. He was a prophet of God. Though Moses had many drawbacks, God engaged him for this mission, giving him courage and strength. He suffered many hardships for the people under his leadership. On several occasions, they turned against him. They were prone to accuse him and murmur against him. Once, they even tried to stone him to death. Still, he always interceded before God on their behalf. he performed penance for the sins of the people. Once he fasted and prayed for 40 days as penance for the idolatry of the Israelites. Once the Lord called Moses to the top of Mount Nebo opposite Jericho. Pointing to the promised land, he said, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." Moses could not enter the promised land. Moses died while they were still in the wilderness. He was buried in the valley of Moab. The people of Israel observed 30 days of mourning for their dear departed leader, under whom they spent 40 years since the exodus from Egypt. He was the only prophet who spoke face to face with the Lord. Children, do you feel sad that Moses died without seeing the promised land? Moses' greatest wish was not the promised land, but to see the face of the Lord, and that came true. He was always strengthened by God when he felt weak. God knows our wishes and dreams, and He will fulfill them if we are truly faithful. Leadership of Joshua. Aaron, whom God had given as assistant to Moses, died earlier. So, God assigned Joshua as a successor to Moses to lead the Israelites. Before his death, Moses had blessed Joshua. Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israelites, "Be strong and bold, for you are the one who will go with this people into the land that Lord has sworn to their ancestors to give them, and you will put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed." Joshua was the son of Nun, and the spirit of wisdom was upon him. Lord guided Joshua, and the people listened to him. Following the directions of Moses, Joshua endeavored to lead the people, trusting solely in God's providence. It was with this total obedience to God that Joshua could bring the people of Israel to the land of Canaan. Children, the life of Joshua teaches us that obedience to God will take us to greater heights. Entering the promised land. At the end of their 40 years of wandering, the people of Israel reached a place called Moab on the bank of River Jordan. They had to cross the river to enter the land of Canaan. Joshua then said to the Israelites, "Draw near and hear the words of the Lord your God. When the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan flowing from above shall be cut off. They shall stand in a single heap." Children, do you remember a similar incident where when Moses commanded the Red Sea withdrew and the dry land appeared for the Israelites to escape from Egypt? The priests started ahead of the people carrying the Ark of the Covenant, containing the 2 stone tablets that the Lord had given them. The Ark of the Covenant was a symbol of the presence of God. The people followed the Ark. The moment the priest touched the water, the flow stopped. Dry land appeared in the river Jordan. Then the people crossed over opposite Jericho. While all Israel were crossing over on dry ground, the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood on dry ground in the middle of Jordan until the entire nation finished crossing over the Jordan. The Israelites who started on the long journey to Canaan after miraculously crossing the Red Sea now entered Canaan after miraculously crossing the river Jordan. Erecting a monument. Once they crossed the Jordan, the people erected a monument to God using 12 stones they collected from the riverbed, as God directed Joshua to do. Joshua asked the people to tell the following generations that this monument was in grateful memory of the miraculous crossing of the river Jordan. The place where they erected the monument was called Gilgal. Conquering of Canaan. Camping in Gilgal, the people of Israel conquered the land of Canaan. They achieved this by strictly following the directions that God gave to Joshua. The first city they conquered was Jericho. God helped the Israelites in a special way to occupy the city, strongly fortified and surrounded by high walls. After this, they occupied all the cities and towns of Canaan one by one. Joshua distributed among the 12 tribes of Israel all the land that they occupied. Thus was fulfilled God's promise that He would give Canaan, the land of milk and honey, to the descendants of Abraham. Remember, children, this was the last of the promises of God to Abraham, which we learned in lesson 2. The phrase, the land where milk and honey flows, should be understood to mean a land where God's blessing was available in abundance. The slavery of Egypt and the hardship of the wilderness were now over. Now the people of Israel could live in their own land in abundance. God, who is faithful in His promises, had provided for all the needs of the people of Israel. Heavenly Jerusalem. The people of the New Testament also are on a long pilgrimage like the Israelites of those days. Our pilgrimage is to a new land of Canaan that God, our loving Father, has promised us through Jesus. At the end of this journey, we will reach the goal, the heavenly Jerusalem. Heaven is the goal of life for all the people of the world. How much more beautiful is heaven compared to the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey? Heaven is the abode of God's presence. The final goal of each individual is union with God. Even though the people of Israel committed many offenses, they did not forget their goal, the land of Canaan. At the end of their hardships, they could achieve the goal. This is a message that we get from the life of the people of the Old Testament. We should lead our lives keeping heavenly Jerusalem as our goal, receiving from God the strength to overcome the obstacles that we may face on the way. Thus, we will be able to share the bliss of heaven at the end of our earthly lives. Let us pray. O God, who helped the Israelites to reach the promised land, help us to reach heaven. Here's a small quiz for you. Children, during the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness from Egypt to Canaan, you would have seen many important places. Check for these places in the below map. It shows the way Israelites traveled from Egypt to reach Canaan. You can see Ramses, the land gifted by Joseph to his father Jacob. You can see Mara, where Israelites received the manna. You can see Mount Sinai, where Lord gave the commandments to Moses. You can see Mount Nebo, from where Moses saw the promised land, and the valley of Moab, where he was buried. Gilgal, where Joshua erected the monument, and Jericho, the first city conquered by Joshua, and finally Canaan, the promised land. Children, please find the questions and answers for lesson 10. This is your assignment which you need to write and submit. So children, like the Israelites who overcame all the obstacles through the strength of God and reached their destination, we should also pray to God to bless us with courage and strength to face any obstacles coming our way and lead a blessed life. This is the end of today's class. Have a blessed week and see you soon.